you've all spoken a lot about the upside benefits of artificial intelligence and generative AI, but I think at the same time, banks still find it a little bit scary. So how would you say banks can go about deploying solutions successfully in AI, and how can intellect help perhaps in the deployment?
Yeah, so from an intellect perspective, we would like to think of AI in terms of autonomous AI agents and cognitive AI agents. And we have a Purple Fabric platform that we have built internally. And this Purple Fabric platform is essentially to build expert agents. So, the bank's concern is that, look, if I am giving my data out and some expert agent is doing on the analytical work, I need to be able to audit the results. I need to have full governance on my data, and essentially whatever code that I'm writing, let's say I'm writing a credit rule, that rule does not go out. All of that is controlled using Purple Fabric, our platform. We essentially train our customers to get them to be able to use Purple Fabric on their own, so they can start developing their expert agents by themselves, both the autonomous agents as well as the cognitive agents.
Raju, perhaps you could simplify some of the language around that and explain to people what is an expert agent, for example.
So, in the Gen AI context, an expert agent is like another person who is sitting next to you in a virtual world and doing the job that you would be doing. So he is an agent of yours who's expert. Okay, and that's the context of an expert agent. Now, what Amit said, I'll just add to that. And one thing I forgot to add previously when we were saying what is the investment, So I want to add one more thing, which is critical to all banking today, is risk and compliance assessment and doing that. So as a banker, that's one of my primary goal, that I would obviously invest in how do I measure my risk, how do I take care of my compliance and regulatory aspects. So now coming back to the question on AI agents. Now, just to add from what Amit had said, what we have done today is we have gone away from a training model. So if you look at 2 years back, all AI agent had to be trained. That means you have to give data so that they can learn and they can perform. So you are training the agents. Now the difference of generative AI is they are learning by themselves. So you are not anymore teaching them what you have to do. So they are learning. And the concern that you are saying is, how do I know the AI is doing the right job or the right thing? And which brings us to biases that can happen in a generative or an AI platform. To handle that, what we have put some guardrails, which means when AI goes out and looks for answer, you are telling them exactly what they have to look for. To give an example, suppose I'm in Saudi and Sama gives me a list of regulation that I have to follow when I'm doing an import LC. Correct? Now I can put that regulation into my AI agent and say, when you're performing a transaction in Saudi, this is the rules that you have to see. You don't need to go out and figure it out yourself what has to be done. So that's what now we have been able to do, that we have been able to put guardrails so that it does not deviate and it is always where you want it to streamline to.
Okay, guys, great discussion. I think, to my mind, the trade agenda over the last few years has been dominated by two big themes. One is digitalization, which we've spoken about at length. The other is a word that Raju mentioned some time ago now, which is sustainability. And sustainability very much lies at the heart of Vision 2030, Osama. What are your thoughts on the subject of sustainability and the role of the financial sector in supporting sustainability in the kingdom, and indeed the role of the service providers like Intellect and how technology can help in that area?
Yeah, absolutely. And the good thing is that ICC is also very much looking into the sustainability. And ICC has issued a report recently where it clearly depicts that we can have an effect of no less than 30% of carbon emission reduction if we apply all the rules properly into the banking sector. And what I mean by that is just when you extend credit, whether it's trade finance or not, and when you assess credit, is assess a company, so are they following the sustainability rules or not that are, commonly known and, they've been issued by the United Nations. So am I really following the rules? For me as a bank, I need to take that step. And I truly believe that, central banks need to do that with the banks. And today is, I would say, voluntarily, but I believe soon it will be compulsory.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that that entity that you're extending credit to, that they're applying all the rules of sustainability, and not just doing that, just also to make sure that it is proper. Just like, we talk about money laundering, we talk about greenwashing. So, because again, we know there's a lot of issues there. Yeah, I appear to be doing something that is green, while, the underlying is not. So we have to be careful. And that's where technology can really help us. And again, that's what we were talking about, whether mainly Gen AI can really help us in making that, like for a company that is importing a certain element into its, let's say, manufacturing. So was that procured in a green manner? Was that element green to start with? Like, we talk about hydrogen. There's green hydrogen, there's, non-green hydrogen. So did they go for the green hydrogen or did they not? And so on. So all of that is definitely happening, and it's happening in a big wave. And I truly believe that, we're going to see a lot more coming into this. And it's definitely crucial because it's, as you said, it's in the heart of our Vision 2030. And sustainability is something that is good for not just us as a nation, but the entire world. I mean, we're all suffering. The planet is not really the planet that we're living in now. We want it to be. And if we don't do something about it collectively, we're going to face problems very, very soon.
Raju, Amit, anything to add on sustainability?
I think sustainability, again, it's core to our objective, not only as Intellect as a company, but also in the way we serve the society. But when we come to as a platform, I think our platform is well equipped to help bank, realize or attain this sustainability at a scale. And how we do it, obviously, again, with Gen AI being so powerful, I think we are using it to its full capacity or potential. So how we look at sustainability is we look at primarily 4 pillars in how we can capture sustainability. So now if you look at any transaction, you have 2 parties, right? You have a buyer or a seller, you have an applicant or beneficiary, and we can use Gen AI to capture and give a score to those business partners, like the applicant, what is the kind of business it is in, how is it working, policies are. So we can capture all of this and give a score. Similarly, we can look at the goods that they are trading in, okay, and give a score to that. And finally, the way this transaction is getting processed, or for example, I am importing coal from Australia to India. Now this is coming through a vessel, and you know the distance, and you know what is the rate of carbon emission per kilometer of this vessel. Using all of this, you can give a very precise data to the bank to say whether this transaction that they are going to take on is green or it is non-sustainable. And I think once you have done that, banks then have a huge, I will say, potential to facilitate people who are more on the greener side. So, and I'm sure Amit will get into that. But from a trade perspective, if your transaction is green, from a bank perspective, and it is already there in Europe, that you get better score, you get better benefits from the central government. So that's all part of it, right? All government are trying bank to facilitate this. We actually have all the components that can help bank do this.
From a supply chain perspective, ESG scoring, it can be Gen AI generated. We have our own agent. We call it ESG Edge that gives out score. We also partner with Coriolis and other providers who also give us scores. It's important for us to understand how the banks want to look at their supply chain finance business with reference to sustainability. So we are open to creating the models that they want to use. At the end of it, depending upon the score that you get, a supplier either gets a better price or they get a better limit if their ESG score is up there. So from a bank's perspective and also from an anchor's perspective, there is a clear communication going down the supply chain that this is something really important and this is something that they value. And that, I think, is a pretty good starting point to set the agenda for sustainability. Whether this reporting or whether these actions really result into changing the reporting of that anchor party, whether they get a better score, whether they get a better tax rate, etc., is, I think, a little bit secondary, and that's how the anchors need to think about it at this point in time. It's very important to divulge this whole spirit of sustainability in the supply chain for it to be truly successful. If people start looking at it only as a compliance and a reporting thing, then it would not meet its purpose.
Oh yeah, they will always find a way, to skew it right and left, like buying credits and stuff like that. That doesn't help.
That doesn't help,
of course.
Yeah.
Osama, can we talk a little bit about Saudi Arabia's exceptional positioning geographically, strategically, sitting as it does at the crossroads of major international trading routes between Asia, Europe, Africa? And how do you see Vision 2030 helping Saudi Arabia eventually to become a real true trading hub going forward to take advantage of that positioning?
Well, I mean, if you look at the Vision 2030 pillars, it's very clear that, one of the pillars, first of all, like, let's say we would like to export technology, export ideas. So it's not one just to consume, although we are very much welcoming, for anyone to come in and, with their expertise, to help us develop. And then once that is, it becomes unique to us, then we can export it to to other countries and other places. And you mentioned Africa, and I truly believe that, Africa is almost greenfield, because there's a lot that can potential. Exactly, so much potential that we can all do. And there are initiatives at government level that are targeting the whole continent of Africa. And I believe the whole world is doing that. And we could see a lot of investments, whether from China or other GCC countries or the European countries, that, what we have seen throughout the years. But for us as Saudi Arabia, we truly want to bridge that gap between what the East and the West does, and try to I would say export these technologies and our experiences into Africa, where they need to leap rather than build gradually, because it just makes sense, like what we saw with M-Pesa and other developments on the payment side, because they just went straight into mobile payments and mobile banking without going through all the learning curve that all the world went through. So this is no different, and I truly believe that this is going to happen more and more throughout the next few years.
Okay, thank you. I know we're a little bit short of time here now, so Raju and Amit, before we close, I'd like to just take this conversation towards a topic of general interest globally, but which will equally be relevant to Saudi Arabia. This has created the availability of electronic bills of exchange, electronic promissory notes. How do you see that development impacting, first of all, Raju, perhaps in the world of trade, and then also turning to you, Amit, in the context of so-called deep tier supply chain finance? So, Raju.
I think this move is something which will help trade obviously become more efficient. Today we know that because of physical negotiable instrument, it takes so much of time for every goods or every document to process through this entire cycle. Now with this digitization, it's making this entire process seamless. You have 100% traceability. You know who is the genuinely holding that instrument. The risk of fraud is going down drastically over here. And the third part is the technology which we are using today is more interoperable. So which means it is going to give all parties equal opportunity to engage into it. And with governments, coming up and helping this and ICC backing this, I think this have a very good future, at least from a trade perspective going ahead. And I'm sure we are not there today, right now. Next 2 to 3 years, it's going to be very crucial with so many fintechs coming in. And we as a trade platform, we support this 100%, right? And we believe that this is going to be one of the game changer in the entire trade journey and in the history of trade.
I would like to reemphasize on just the interoperability. Yeah. It's the single most important aspect, because that's what really stops us from, if I apply a standard in Saudi that is different than the UK, different than China, then different than, no, we're never going to be able to talk to each other. And I truly believe that because ICC of their independence and their role historically, since they were created over 100 years, setting these rules, when it comes to the Incoterms, and the others. So, setting that standard is really the forte. I truly believe that, they always take the, what's good for everyone, not for a certain area or a market or a technology. And I think, we're getting there. I mean, you're right. I mean, we're not there yet, but, with the evolution, as you said, of Moderator and others.
Exactly. Yeah. I think we're all agreed on that, Osama. Amit, just briefly, perhaps on deep tier, are you a disciple or not?
I'm still
on the fence.
Still watching this space.
Yeah.
So deep tier as a concept has been, in prominence for the past 8 to 10 years, if you like, and with the exception of a couple of use cases in China that have been very successful, we haven't really seen a big windfall as far as deep tier financing use cases is concerned. And probably one of the reasons why this has happened is the concept itself. Such a concept takes its own time to mature and, get absorbed within the population. And the technology also takes some time to evolve, So whether it is blockchain based or non-blockchain based, finally now we have technology where you can take a irrevocable payment undertaking, or as you guys were talking about, a digital negotiable instrument, and we can split it and we can distribute it using tokens or otherwise to the deep tier. Okay, so the technology has finally arrived. Now the compliances are following up. Now all we need to do, and I think that is where the rubber hits the road, is when the fintech players and the banks actually offer their solutions to the corporates. Okay, and that is when we will know if the anchor is really interested in financing the deepest chain, or if the tier 1 is interested in sharing their data of their suppliers and the terms that they buy in with the anchor. And lastly, the biggest question of all is whether the deepest tier is even ready to adapt to the technology that we are going to use it for. Okay, so all of this mystery will get unraveled in the next 3 to 5 years is what I would imagine. But it's really at a nice spot at this point.
I'm a big fan of Planet China. I don't even call it. Honestly, I mean, China is just a planet of its own. They work in a different way. I mean, they really are. Not everything is applicable in China can be applied everywhere else. It's really, it's so unique. And they have an ecosystem. They have the size, whether in terms of land, people, technology, focus. The whole thing is there. So, but we always learn from them. And it's always, great to see such great things happening. And we can definitely do it across the whole globe.
Okay, before we wrap up, guys, maybe I could just ask each of you briefly, please, to give us some closing remarks in terms of your outlook for the next few years. I gather from the comments that I've heard that it's pretty much positive and optimistic, but Osama, start with you.
I mean, from trade perspective, I truly believe no matter what, I mean, we've seen, the downfalls of countries or, states or whatever it is. I mean, trade will always continue to be. People will thrive, will always adapt, and you will only see different things evolving as we're evolving throughout, God created Earth. And honestly, I truly believe that, the digital world will we're only scratching the surface. I truly believe that we're only scratching the surface. When you mentioned, blockchain is, I would say, is something of the past, because now it became, no, seriously, because now it became almost a de facto. Like, you don't need to say, like when we used to say E this and E that, we don't see that anymore. The de facto now is E. All of these technologies have become part of, all what we're doing. And it's not really about the technology itself, because technologies are nothing but tools, but it's really the rules and regulations and the evolution of that and how we use them is really what will dictate how things, can happen in the future.
Raju?
If you look into the future for the next 5 to 7 years, I'm looking at a broader horizon. From a technology perspective, I think we will have a lot of autonomous processes in trade.
For sure.
Okay. So today things which are manual, and this is what I even wrote in my white paper, is that I see autonomous things happening by 2030. And by the time you hit your vision, that's my vision, that it will be autonomous. Second is, as you see, trade has been there, will be there. Through ups and downs, the volume of trade has not gone down drastically, but it is always hovering around, and it will continue there. What may happen is banks need to focus differently for trade, which means they have to innovate themselves in terms of how they can streamline, how they can run efficiently their business, because the volume is not growing, but they have to create more spread out of the same volume. And I think that's where technology will be there. Technology will be an enabler for trade, and trade is going to go on maybe the same way for the next 10 years.
Amit?
So for me, all this technology evolution, of course, it leads to digitization, but more importantly, it leads to new possibilities. You can create new products, you can go deeper down the supply chain. We all talk about SME only getting, certain percentage of SMEs are able to get finance today. But as technology evolve, we can possibly spread the financing down to the last tier. And that's where the possibilities open up. The product managers and the technology people, it's important that they keep a broader mindset around technology and utilize it for mutual benefit. And that's where we are going to go.
Yeah. And with that, I'd like to thank our distinguished panelist speakers, Osama, Amit, Raju. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for watching. Thank you.